For those of you that have been following the channel for a while, you already know I fancy myself more of an aluminum profile sim rig kind of guy, but I absolutely think there's a place in the world for foldable cockpits. Maybe you don't have enough space in your house for a permanent rig. Maybe your wife doesn't want an eyesore in the middle of the living room, or maybe you're like me and you just need something to be able to test new hardware. Whatever the case, when RacGTing reached out to me about testing the Challenger 301 you see behind me, it just happened to be perfect timing because I have a Thrustmaster T598 that I need to be able to test, and I didn't want to have to tear apart my sim rig just to test this new wheelbase. Now, according to their website, this thing can withstand the forces of most major direct drive wheelbases. It takes about 10 minutes to set up initially, and about 15 seconds every time after that. So, let's go ahead and tear it out of the box. I won't make you guys sit through the whole thing. We'll do a montage. Alright, so I'm fairly convinced that took less than 10 minutes to get it out of the box and have it completely ready for a wheel. But here's what it looks like when it's folded up. Now, obviously, if you have a wheel mounted to it, then you're not going to be able to fold it up quite as much. But basically, you can see on the bottom, it's just wide enough to stand on its own. Everything kind of folds into itself. You can see right here, you've got your pedal base folded up inside the rig. Wheelbase is right here. Everything kind of folds right up against the seat. Now that we've got the rig unfolded, let me take you guys on a tour of some key features of it. First off, very simple one. We ratchet it all the way up and then let it come out. That's how we adjust the angle of the seat. So obviously that's a bit of an extreme angle. If you get a look at it level, you're almost laying down, nice for a nap, but not necessarily for racing, so I'm going to kick that up just a little bit. Now you might notice on the seat, that's kind of still a bit of an angle upward. The seat is a little bit shallow. I think, like, I've sat in it for a few minutes and it feels like it could be pretty comfortable, but depending on your size and everything, you get kind of like a hammock seat going right here. And this is definitely not a very large space to sit on. It's not uncomfortable by any means so far, and as we test it, I'll give my feedback a little bit more. But my initial impression is that's just a little bit of a short space. Material-wise, I was kind of surprised that it's almost like a Alcantara feeling material. I'm obviously not real Alcantara, but it's got more of that feel, or a inside-out leather feel. I thought it was going to be more of a mesh, so I'm kind of stoked about that because it is much softer and cozier than I thought it would be. Right here on the seat, we have two adjustment on each side that allows you to tilt the upper back of the seat forward or backward based on how you would like it to be comfortable. And then, of course, a few simple things up here on the wheel deck adjustments underneath. Simple twist to loosen, and you can adjust the tilt on your wheel deck. That being said, with it tight and quite a bit of force, that's actually holding very well. I've actually seen wheelbase mounts on more sturdy looking rigs that would shift under that pressure. So kind of impressive for one little twist knob that is able to hold. Getting into the rig is super easy. You just twist this tab right here and you're able to lift up and climb in. And then, of course, there's no seat adjustment and no way to adjust your distance from the steering wheel. But if you are taller, down here at the bottom on the pedals, there'll be a couple little twist knobs. Loosen these up and you can slide out or bring it back in depending on your height. A few things I want to mention while sitting in the seat that I also didn't get to yet. First off, you do have a shift plate. So your shifter can either go on your right side, or there's holes for mounting over here on the left side. And then one thing while I was down at the pedals that I forgot to mention, I kind of noticed this after the fact, but you do have adjustable feet. So if you wanted to angle your pedals up a little bit more, that is an option as well. So I'm not going to lie, I was a bit skeptical about the short seating on it, but after sitting here for a bit, and I can kind of show you, it looks like an extreme angle on the camera, and even in person, when I step away from the seat, this looks like an extremely reclined angle. But sitting here, I feel almost upright, and I don't know how to explain it. It's like I sink into the seat and everything feels fairly normal. Like I feel like this could actually be a fairly comfortable racing experience. But we're going to go ahead and put the wheel on and give this thing a proper test and see how it works. Alright guys, so I've been sitting here for over an hour getting everything set up between drivers for the wheel, setting up iRacing because I don't typically use this computer for racing games. I have the SimRig PC for that. But in this case, I wanted to have an alternative test spot, so I went ahead and installed the game and did all that. And in all the time I've been sitting here, I've been quite comfortable. I wish I had a little more padding under the legs, but that's not actually impacting me all that much in terms of comfort. As far as the rig goes and rigidity, I've had some time to kind of move around in it and a little back and forth motion. It's thin metal, so my body weight can move it. The wheelbase itself has a little bit of forward and back motion, but it does not have any motion independent of the whole rig moving. So I think from a steering standpoint, if my body's planted and all I'm doing is steering, I'm not going to get a lot of movement left or right that's going to impact me, and I should be able to do some precision driving. As far as going around this track, I don't expect to make it too far, as I've tested it a few times and without having first off the right settings for the car, because again, nothing loaded in, and not having the load cell pedal, I can't say that I expect too much from the drive around the track. Nonetheless, we're going to give it a shot. I've got the wheelbase turned up as much force feedback as this thing's capable of, so let's give it a go. I'm trying so hard not to talk about things that I'm sensing and feeling with the wheelbase because I really am saving the review of the wheelbase for another video. But there are some things that I look forward to talking about with this, because being a direct axial drive wheelbase, it definitely does things a little bit different than I'm used to. And it feels quite a bit different than the other wheelbases I'm used to. Unfortunately, I don't know that it'll get a full and proper test because, again, they didn't include a load cell pedal with it, which is extremely disappointing. Get it up to speed and put a little force through it, but I intentionally shook her up a little bit. Oh my goodness. Well, guess we'll try to pull as much force feedback out of the wheel through here as we can since I've already messed the wheel up. Alright, so I don't know if you guys could tell from that last test of going through the track, I was putting quite a bit of force into the wheel, and I didn't feel like the rig was getting a lot of movement. Now, I was focused on the road. It wasn't something that was distracting from anything I was doing. So overall, I feel like the rig was pretty well planted throughout that little test drive. What's impacting my driving really is just not having the load cell pedal and not being used to just the pedals in general. Even the wheel, I've never used this wheel before today. I literally just installed it like 25 minutes ago. And the wheel isn't even a factor at this point. The motion in the rig's not a factor. Like, as far as all that goes, I don't feel like anything is impacting how this is handling. I'm going to do it again and try to focus a little bit more on it. But really, I think it just comes down to not being used to what pressure the brake needs to be pushed to, and just feeling this really spongy brake pedal. Yeah, if there is any motion in the cockpit, I'm not feeling it right now for sure. If anything, one thing I do feel is the force feedback from this, like when I get shifts and stuff, it actually radiates better than it does from other wheelbases. Like a good hard shift in this thing, and I actually feel like I have a butt kicker under me without having a butt kicker, and that's kind of cool, honestly. Like, I don't want to dig into the wheel, but this combination of this wheel and this wheelbase actually creates some sensations that I'm not used to getting in a very rigid aluminum profile, and it's not something I'm getting from my Fanatec wheel. So it's kind of cool, really. Like, I'm kind of excited about this. Starting to get the hang of that pedal just a little bit. I'm gonna go over, but alright, so overdoing it on the curb, I did feel a little bit of the feedback get absorbed into the seat. Not too much that I would complain about it, but I did feel some transfer there. Nope, I couldn't recreate it that time. Like, I felt it on that one turn, and I think it's because I skipped the whole car up the curb, but it wasn't something I was able to recreate a second time, so. Alright, so admittedly I did go back and watch some of the video, and I see more motion in the rig than I'm feeling. So, for example, like I said, the rocking is the whole rig, but there's not a lot of back and forth movement. There is quite a bit of forward and back movement. But at the same time, you can see I'm putting quite an excessive amount of force onto that for as thin as these aluminum tubes are, or steel tubes are, and they're holding up. The locking brackets are holding up. I don't feel anything about to snap or buckle. So it's fairly sturdy. And realistically, I'm going to be honest, for a cockpit and a seat for the base price of $220. At the time of making this video, it's actually on sale for about $175, and it may even go down more for Black Friday deals. It's a good quality foldable rig, in my opinion. I wouldn't say by any means that it's an alternative to having a solid aluminum profile or steel tube rig, and if you have the space, by all means. RacGTing does also offer some sim rigs that are permanent, but they're not ones that I've tested, and they're not aluminum profile. Most of them aren't even the steel tube design. They're a little bit different than the ones I would typically recommend. Might be worth checking out though. And if you guys are interested in making a purchase with RacGTing, I'm going to put a link in the description. That's the affiliate link. You'll get an additional 5% because you found them through the channel. Also, it helps support the channel because we get a little bit of a kickback, and we can use those funds to reinvest in testing different items and things on the channel. And if I haven't mentioned it enough, make sure you guys follow, because the next video is going to be the full review of the T598 racing wheel. And obviously, like I said, I have some feelings I want to get out about this, both good and bad. And I look forward to sharing them with you after I've had a little more time with it. So I'll see you guys on the next video.